Hello and welcome. And today I'm going to be discussing how 15 years of wild camping has changed my perspective on life. And I'm going to be going over the philosophical, psychological, and physical lessons I've learnt over the years. And also I'll be introducing my perspective as a psychologist by introducing some literature that supports some of my insights and suggests that it's not just me, but maybe it'll be for you too. And you don't necessarily even have to have gone wild camping before, or just regular camping, or even be interested in it to benefit from these insights, I feel. And so please stick around and watch the video and enjoy the 15 years of lessons I have learnt. And if you're unfamiliar with what wild camping is, it's pretty simple. You're just camping out in the wilderness rather than, say, a campsite. And at the end of the video, I'm actually going to be going over all of the gear I've got, because lots of people ask me what I use, as well as the fact that the main barrier to entry really is accumulating all of the gear and knowing what you actually need in the first place. But you don't necessarily have to be interested in that. I'm leaving that at the end of the video. But first, I actually wanted to show you the benefits in the form of a little video montage so you can figure them out for yourself, and then I'll actually talk about them afterwards. So here's the video. Enjoy.
Running from home, breaking ties that you'd grown, catching dreams from the clouds. The city sounds burn your soul, turn your head to the cries of loneliness in the night. Just like a fly when it's caught, the spider soon takes its prey, spins a dance round your heart. Yet be your beauty and age, your pleasure pleasing my mind, your heart will shatter and fall. Step on pavement soul, cast a glance at the young girls are making their way. The passing image of you reflects a pain to my heart and disappears in a crowd. Running from home, breaking ties that you'd grown, catching dreams from the clouds.
I hope you enjoyed that, and now we're going to be talking about some of the benefits. Perhaps the most obvious benefit is that wild camping takes us out of the artificial environment of modern life, which, as I've explored in a previous video, can often be psychologically harmful. Once we re-immerse ourselves in the natural world, we feel revitalized. We're not bombarded by constant stimuli, our pace of life slows down. We start to feel a part of nature, and with that, a deeper sense of belonging in the world. In my experience, I never feel more comfortable, at ease, and content with my place in the world than when I am in nature. This feeling often follows me home and lingers for some time. I'm not the first to come to this conclusion, though. Many philosophers over the years have perceived nature as offering a purer, more authentic way of being, away from the corruption and noise of society. Nature strips away many of the things we convince ourselves are important, but really aren't. And it feels as if my mind has been returned to a state it is meant to be in, which is likely the case, given that only relatively recently in our evolutionary history did we begin to move away from hunting and gathering. It's as if the fog of everyday life has been lifted and I can see things more clearly. And it doesn't just seem to be me. A growing body of psychological research supports this. Not only is there strong evidence to suggest that we are a host to a variety of positive emotional changes after spending time in nature, one 2024 study found that immersion in natural settings enhances our existential well-being and strengthens our sense of meaning. Other studies have also shown that even as little as 90 minutes in nature can reduce activity in parts of the brain associated with rumination, those repetitive negative thought patterns that often accompany depression and anxiety. What this has demonstrated to me more than anything is that being alongside nature is essential to maintaining a healthy perspective on life. It is all too easy to get caught up in the monotony of everyday life, which can sometimes feel suffocating and inescapable. Many of these problems melt away after enough time in the natural world though, after you realise it doesn't have to be that way. That you actually have more agency over your own emotions than you first thought. And that's always reassuring, if nothing else. There's a particular feeling I get when I stand before unspoiled natural beauty. A mountain, a vast forest, a waterfall crashing into a still pool. I have been arm's length away from a deer, face to face. I've come across many different kinds of rare animals in which many people go their whole lives without ever seeing for themselves. It makes me feel grateful to be alive and to be there at that moment to have such experiences. But the feeling deepens when I start to reflect on what it takes for this to even be possible. For life to exist at all, the Earth has to be in just the right position from the sun, with just the right atmosphere, and the right ingredients at its core to produce water, weather, and eventually life. And from there, an endless chain of lives have to come and go generation after generation until eventually I exist. The chances are astronomically small, and yet here I am, alive, able to consciously appreciate all of it. Walking through an ancient woodland with this knowledge feels like walking through a great cathedral. Its halls vast, its columns mighty, and its ceilings infinite. It makes me understand why my ancestors held that the oak tree and the sacred grove were indeed sacred, because they represent something beyond ourselves. And being reminded of that, I found, is one of the most important things a person can experience. When you're wild camping, your world shrinks to what you can carry. A sleeping bag, a tent, food, and a few other things. See my section later covering the gear if you want a more extensive list. Anyway, there's no space for the unnecessary. Everything must have a purpose. What is essential is obvious. Things that ensure you have warmth, shelter, food, water, and rest. However, it is one thing to know this obvious fact, and it's another to actually live it. It gives you immense gratitude for the things we take for granted in everyday life. These things still provide satisfaction in daily life, of course, but when you're out in the wilderness, the experience is elevated to new heights. After a long hike, a cool drink of water becomes the most satisfying thing possible to you in that moment. Being in your tent wrapped up in your sleeping bag as the rain hammers down gives you a sense of comfort you just cannot get at home. And eventually, when you do return home, simple things like a tap with clean running water or a hot shower are no longer taken for granted, at least for a while. You get an appreciation and gratitude for the quality of life you have in a way that far exceeds anything else I have ever experienced. You see your life with a new clarity, which is probably why research indicates that those with lower materialistic values consistently report greater life satisfaction. When wild camping, you wake up with the sun and sleep when it sets. You eat when you're hungry. You walk when and where you want to, and it's a form of freedom that's almost gone in the modern world. This autonomy prompts reflection on how we use our time and what freedom actually means. But freedom isn't absolute, it's constrained by the environment. If it rains, you get wet. If you're low on clean water, you must find some or make some for yourself. And this reveals something often forgotten. Freedom isn't the absence of constraint, but the ability to navigate those constraints wisely on your own terms. You are free, but you have responsibilities. You must account for the world around you, plan, adapt, and take care of yourself. And after enough practice, you realise you're able to meet all of your needs out in the wilderness, and it gives you an unparalleled sense of agency. You feel like you can navigate any difficult situation, and there's research to support this. Studies have found that outdoor experiences increase our perception of self-agency. Once you've had this insight, you start to see how the stresses of the modern world come from feeling passive, being pushed around by systems, schedules, and the expectations of others. But these issues seem smaller and easier to deal with. All of a sudden, that performance review at work seems like a pretty minor obstacle when compared to surviving on your own, for days at a time, without help from modern conveniences. Having confidence in your own abilities, tested by the natural world, leaves you with an invaluable perspective. There is no obstacle in your life you cannot overcome with the right mindset. Modern life shields us away from many forms of discomfort, but it also starves us from meaningful challenge. Hot showers, central heating, stocked fridges, and next-day deliveries all make life comfortable. Whereas I think one of the good things about camping is that some discomfort is inevitable. It's just worth putting up with. Carrying a heavy bag with all you need on your back over the course of a few days is not easy. You'll find your muscles start screaming out in pain. You'll have aches in places you did not know could even hurt. You'll find small cuts and scrapes you have no idea how they got there in the first place. Sometimes you just have to stop and have a break right there and then because you just can't continue any longer. These are inevitable struggles at first. Your body will adapt and you will become stronger with better endurance. But as you get more experience, you find you can also come up with innovative solutions to help alleviate these struggles. Are you weighed down carrying a whole trip's worth of water? Learn how to gather or purify clean water. Or another alternative is you could stash your heavy bag away and take a second, much smaller bag to serve as your bag for your day's exploration. So not only is it tremendously good exercise, you also have to exercise your mind to solve the problems you will inevitably face. Spend enough time training your body and mind this way, and you will notice your life will improve because of it. My first time wild camping was shortly before I turned 15. Now I'm nearly 30. Looking back on the last 15 years, wild camping has not just been a hobby. It made me reflect on how I approach my life in a way no other hobby has. It's changed the way I think, the way I live, the way I understand myself. It's taught me to slow down, to be grateful for what I have, and to embrace challenges rather than just enduring them. Whether or not you go wild camping doesn't really matter. Hopefully, just hearing these reflections has given you something useful to take away with you. But if you do feel inspired to give it a go, or are simply curious what I take with me, stick around, because I'm about to go over what I take with me next. So here is everything, and please do excuse all the guitars in the background there. Don't tell people that I live in such a small flat as this.
Please don't tell anyone how I live.
But yes, I'm going to walk through everything from left to right here. So I've got some Gore-Tex waterproof trousers just in case, although it's probably going to be 20 degrees Celsius or more. It's going to be hot. But just in case, I've got a spare pair as well, because I always like to have spares. I've got a jumper. That's mainly for the cold nights. Obviously, I've got some decent hiking boots. These have seen some wear over the years, but I know they're reliable. They'll do the job. Over here, I've got some woolen socks, and I'm going to put these over another pair of socks, just so the boots don't rub. And I find that these sorts of woolen socks, they don't absorb moisture very easily, and they're quite comfortable and they seem to do the job. Up the top there, that green thing over there, it's just a waterproof coat, nothing very interesting. And now going to some of the more questionable things over here. We have obviously not the water, that's pretty obvious. I'm actually using this to use that jet boil over there, which is just a gas stove that boils water for all of these ration packs. And these are actually surprisingly good. They're a little bit expensive, but they're quite tasty and they're very convenient. And I've got 2 spaghetti and meatballs because I'm a big guy and I'm going to eat probably both of those in one sitting. 2 chili and rice because I hate myself and I want to go through all of that toilet roll apparently in the woods. And then as a little treat to myself, I've got chocolate brownie as well. But there's plenty more where that came from with the food, and I might not bring all of this because there's more in here that I'm going to go through in a second. But I have a cautionary tale. So I originally bought this Talisker Sky whiskey, and to be honest, it tastes like bicycle rubber tyres. It's gross. It's very peaty, and it's not to my taste. So my advice is try what you're bringing before you bring it, because this was not it. This didn't do it for me, and I would have been disappointed if I had to drink this on its own of an evening. And yeah, this is purely for in the evening when I'm relaxing in my tent. But I went for something a bit easier to drink on its own, and it's a much smaller bottle, so it's more practical. Some Appleton Estate rum. I find drinking rum on its own a lot more pleasant if you're drinking, of an evening after a hard day's hike. And that'll probably go down very nicely. I have a book to read because people forget that you will be lying in your tent, and if you can't sleep, it's very boring. Just lying down waiting to sleep in a tent. Because I don't want to sit there on my phone, 1, because I'm in nature, and 2, because it'll burn through the battery. Now, you can see here, I've got an OS map here of the New Forest. I love these maps, they're great. They show you everything you need to see, and it's always helpful to know where you're going. And on a similar vein, 2 compasses, and I brought 2 just because they're so important. If I lose one, that's my navigation shot, and so I want 2 just in case. I'll keep one on my person, one in my bag, and so if I, for whatever reason, misplace my bag, I've still got the ability to navigate away. And equally, if I lose the one on my person, I've got a spare in my bag. Also, portable speaker. This pairs very nicely with the old rum for evening entertainment, because I do like a little bit of music, and when it's dark, you're not really missing out on much. And it's also sort of reassuring in a way when you're in the middle of the woods. You don't want people necessarily approaching your camp at night, and hearing music keeps them away, because I don't really fear someone sneaking up to me and murdering me in the woods. It's so unlikely. I mean, walking down the street these days is far more dangerous. Another thing worth mentioning, paper train tickets, just in case the phone dies, if it gets damaged for whatever reason, very important. And I'm going to slowly go over to the right here. So, got 2 portable chargers. Probably don't need all of that power. This one's very heavy. This is maybe 3 or 4 kilograms. It's surprisingly heavy for its size, but it does have the solar panel thing on the top. So if I do run out of power in both for some reason, I can at least get a small minuscule amount of power out of this if I just leave it out in the sunshine. So it's just good for emergencies, I suppose. A bit of tape. This is quite thick tape. This is largely to repair tears in a tent. Hopefully that's not going to happen, but it's good to prepare for it anyway. In here, some binoculars. That's largely for looking at wildlife more than anything. And they're not really necessary. This is just a USB, micro USB cable, which is used to charge most of the things. In fact, most camping gear that's electrical normally uses some sort of USB interface to recharge it, which is very convenient, as it pairs very nicely with the portable chargers. First aid kit, One thing that's very important about these is you know everything in there, make sure everything is in date that might expire, and you're familiar with and know how to use all of the content in here. Probably best to get a bigger and better first aid kit than that, but I generally speaking know what I'm doing because I spent years and years, well, not years and years, but I spent a year working as a lifeguard when I was a teenager, and we did first aid to death, and it will forever stick with me. So I know how to use this, not too worried about it. Bin bag, trash bag if you're American. This is just to keep my rubbish in, keep it separate from my bag. Quite often pick up some rubbish I find in the woods as well, because I want to leave it better than I found it. Of course, toilet roll, very necessary. Does a camping enthusiast go to the toilet in the woods? Yes. It's very unfortunate, but I think the general principle is that, and something that will probably put a lot of people off, is you dig a little hole, you do your business, you put the toilet paper in the hole, and then you fill it back in, which is a lot of hassle and very, what's the word? Dehumanizing for a modern person. And what I have here is just 2 bags that I'm going to store some of this stuff in inside my bag to make it easier to find in my backpack. And this white bag here is just what I use to put my dirty clothes in, to keep them separate from my clean ones, make it nice and easy. And it never hurts to have too many bags. And that brings us on nicely to this. This is a 65-litre Berghaus bag. It's all it is just a big bag here in the middle, and in the top there, this part, that's got a little compartment in, and then in the bottom here, I'm not going to pull it out because it's a hassle, but you can see that green there. You pull that over and you cover it over the whole bag and it becomes waterproof. Very helpful, very necessary. I think if you're going to spend good money on something, get a really good bag because it makes your life so much easier. So in amongst all of this stuff, this is a collapsible chair in here. This is a new purchase. I've not used this yet. But it's pretty handy because I find when you've been hiking all day, you've got a big heavy bag on. You want something with a bit of back support because your back will hurt because you're not used to lugging around, 20 kgs for 8 to 10 hours a day. And it's nice. And I can sit back with my rum, my music in my chair and enjoy myself a little bit. Here I've got some spare tent pegs. Nothing too exciting. I think they're just MSR ones. And here we have a travel towel. It's got a bit of chalk on it, climbing chalk, which isn't necessary, but it's microfiber just so it can be nice and small, yet it dries off pretty quickly and can dry you off pretty quickly as well. So I like these. I probably will be washing myself in a river somewhere. So there are no showers in the woods, and 2 2-litre flasks over there for water, which I'll be bringing with me. Some hand sanitizer there, very important. I've got a new tent here. This is an MSR Elixir Free. This is a 3-person tent, and it's cost me a lot of money. It was, I think, £400. So hopefully this will be a tent for life. MSR are very good, and I think one of my friends has had this tent before. I wanted a bit of room. I wanted to live in a bit of luxury because previously I had an OEX Fox 2, which is very low profile, very good in windy conditions, and I'm still going to keep it and use it if I'm worried about the weather. But I can actually probably lie down in this one and have, not my head touching one end of the tent and my toes the other, which will be nice. I can actually live in comfort. And speaking of comfort, we have here, this is a Berghaus XL self-inflating roll mat, I suppose, sleeping mat, whatever you want to call it. Now, these are great. This can be more comfortable than an actual bed, and in fact, it's been more comfortable than about 60% of the beds I've slept in my life, so I really can't complain. It's quite comfy, and pair that with this sleeping bag here, which I do want to complain a little bit about. So this is an OEX sleeping bag. It is very comfortable, and it's got a bit of waterproofing to it, despite being nice and soft, which is useful in bad conditions. But what I want to draw your attention to is this. It says it's 3 seasons. I used this early October one time. Not a particularly cold day. It got to maybe 1 or 2 degrees Celsius. It says comfort 1 degree. And I was shivering all night. I probably got about 1 or 2 hours of very broken sleep. But what I find misleading here is extreme minus 22 degrees. You will die if you use this sleeping bag in that sort of temperature. And yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. I think it's often better to get a thicker sleeping bag than you think you'll need and open it up and use it like a blanket if it gets too hot, or not use it at all if it's really hot, than trusting some of what it says on here. Because if I went camping and it was 1 degree at night time, I'd be freezing in this. And that's not comfort. That was, I can't sleep, it's far too cold. So, little warning on the sleeping bags. And so, moving over here, I'm going to have to reach over some stuff. So, I've got a Leatherman multi-tool. This has a knife, a saw, a file, some scissors, bottle opener, everything you could possibly want. I've got an Opinel. This is just a folding knife. It's not very good. It's a little bit rusty. I mainly use it for whittling sticks to cook over a fire, but I'm not going to be lighting any fires because you're not allowed to in the New Forest. And I've got a spork, mess tin, probably a bit unnecessary, some flattening containers to keep some food in, which I'll get to in a second. This is, I think, what is it? Is it propane? Yeah, propane fuel mix. Hank Hill will be chuffed. Jetboil, this assembles and you basically put it on top of here like that. And you boil water. It's nice and easy. Got some bug spray, torch, head torch. Now, if I can lean over all of this stuff, move that lamp out of the way. This is a ferrocerium rod, as you can see. You scrape it to get sparks. Not going to be using it, but it's important to have some means of making fire just in case, something goes wrong. And as such, I've got a couple of lighters, just a regular clipper lighter there, and this is a waterproof lighter, which I think is quite cool. There you can see it. There you go. So I've got a lamp here. All this does is it folds around like that and you can hang it from the top of your tent or use it outside of your tent, but it's very bright and does the job very well. I've got a little pack here. This just has some more cutlery, foldable toothbrush in there, and then in the top here is just a bunch of water treatment tablets, just in case, I run out of water, which is quite likely because it's going to be a heat wave, I think. So, I think the only thing I haven't mentioned now is what's in the food bag. I've covered all of this stuff now. Now, the final thing, and this is very unnecessary, and I'm probably being greedy. I've got a great big, I don't know how to say this without it sounding bad out of context. I've got some cured meat here, a big, large French bit of cured meat. Now, do something with that. And in here is a lot of unnecessary stuff. Like, I went full hunter-gatherer and thought, some dried apple flakes, a bit of chocolate, why not? Good way to boost the blood sugar if you're doing a lot of physical exercise, actually. Bunch of beef jerky, bit of protein, nice to have. Of course, I will be getting some from those packs, but just in case, maybe I have a problem with my Jetboil. I've not used that yet. And we have, I don't know what these are, but they're smoky barbecue and they're crunchy, and that sounds nice. And crisps take up too much room, so that's like my crisp replacement. Got a bunch of protein bars, probably far too many. Probably give some of them away to my mate. A couple of things of dried mango. This is one of my camping favourites. I don't know why dried mango is so prevalent in Britain, but we find it in all shops for some reason, and it's very tasty, and it's very good for camping. I'm probably going to put these two in one of these pots over here, just so they don't go bad when I open them, because I'm not going to eat a whole bag in one sitting. That's madness. Some cashews, nice and easy, and got one of those. And then in here, the final stuff, I've got some copper soups, just in case. I'm bringing these along mainly because They're chicken and vegetable, by the way. Some water treatment tablets can make your water taste kind of gross, and if I wanted to drink a fair amount of it, maybe whack in a little bit of cup of soup just to take some of the edge off. I've got some coffee. This has milk powder in as well, so just chuck it in my mug over there, and it'll be good to go with some hot water. And I've got 4 because I'm bringing extra just in case one of my friends wants it, and 2 emergency cups of tea just in case, although I'm not bringing milk, so I probably won't tuck into those. And yes, I think that's everything. That was a lot more than I expected, but this is all the equipment I have, and if you have all of this, you will be more than set to go camping, at least in reasonable conditions. You know, if it's really cold, you need more equipment, more specialized equipment. If you're in like a desert or something, again, same goes. But I'm going to a temperate temperate forest. I'm too stuck with Dartmoor. We've got temperate rainforest there. And so this is all catered towards that. It's catered towards camping in Britain. And so we don't have that much extreme weather, you know, other than constant rain. So it's doing the job, and hopefully this should be more than enough, and somehow it's all going to fit in that bag there. But yes, I hope you found this interesting. I enjoy talking about this. Maybe it's just me, but there you go. Well, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.